The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the commentators, guest, and the host. They do not explicitly or necessarily reflect nor represent the policy or views held by Tobago Updates or this network. Tobago Updates or this network cannot be held accountable for all or any views expressed during this program.
Hi, good evening, all of Tobago and all of Trinidad and Tobago. My name is Marlon David and I am your host, and let me say a hearty welcome back to the Minority Report. Yes, we are back up and today's program is titled Simply the Return. And so much has happened, so much has taken place in Tobago, in Trinidad and Tobago. And here we are back again, doing what we do best, doing what we are mandated to do, and really doing it with a sense of love and sincerity, not just for coming in here on an evening after a long day, but we actually enjoy presenting this information to you, the public. I want to say thank you for all those of you who have, I mean, the only way I can describe it is kept us on our toes, because at every turn, persons were asking, when is the Minority Report beginning to air again? And as recent as 10 minutes ago, someone who was not aware, they didn't see the ad out, and they didn't check on any status and so on. And the message to ask, what is happening tonight? So I really want to say thank you for all those of you who have without fail kept us busy, kept us going, kept encouraging us, asking when is it on. It spoke volumes to the fact that many people are in fact paying attention, many people are logged on, many people are in fact watching the program. So I really want to begin this evening with that, a heartfelt thank you so much for making this program the #1 aired program and the #1 viewed program right here on Tobago Updates Network in Tobago and by extension Trinidad. And we do in fact look forward to continuing this particular reputation, and we know that with all that has happened, one thing for sure and for certain is that the Minority Report continues to forge ahead, strong and passionate, and always ready and willing to deliver to you, the public, the information, the facts, hold this administration accountable, and provide you with the clarity on anything that you need to be provided on. This evening, if you are viewing with us, let me do the needfuls. You can see this program on the Tobago Updates website. You can view it on the Tobago Updates YouTube channel. You can also view it on the Tobago Updates Facebook page. If you are logging onto the page, it's going to give you the opportunity to really interact with us. I'm asking you to keep your comments respectful, keep it brief. There are many persons who log on, some who don't log in, but are watching the program nonetheless. And we really want to be able to continue to have a respectful program. So we encourage folks to share your opinions, share your views, but respect everyone else's opinions and respect everyone else's views. You can also look at the program, and I mean, this is coming right into your home now if you are an AMPLIA subscriber. Yes, if you are an AMPLIA subscriber, you can tune into channel 102. That's 102. And you can view the Minority Report live, as well as all the other programming coming out of Tobago Updates. New to the cast also is Flow. Yes, Flow is now a part of the network, or a part of the conversation and sharing information, sharing programming and so on. So if you want, you can turn to Flow, channel 121 Hub TV, or channel 130 AVS. That's channel 121 Hub TV or channel 130 AVS. If you are looking at the program, you're participating, and you think you have information you want to share with us, you can also do so by sending a WhatsApp message. That WhatsApp contact is 284-6597. That's 284-6597. And you can send anything with respect to videos, you can send pictures, you can send your comments, you can send information, and I can guarantee you that that information is going to be treated with confidentiality, as we have earned a reputation to been doing for the last 3+ years. And yes, it's been over 3 years since we have been sharing this platform with you. And as we go into the program, I think we're going to be having sharing a lot more thanks to you, the viewers. So, folks, I want to encourage you tonight to really get everyone involved. Get your family members, get your friends, get your neighbors. Call around and let persons know that the Minority Report is back. Yes, in fact, it is back. And we are back, we are ready to go, we are ready to continue where we left off, and we are all in for this whole journey that we have embarked on for you over 3 years ago, or with you. Let me introduce my guest thus far in studio with me, joining us this evening as we begin with the return, is none other than Minority Councillor Mrs. Petal Daniel Benoit. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Good night, good night, good night, good night, Marlon. Good night to all of you locked into the Minority Report, wherever you are. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you for your support. And it is really good to be back.
Yes.
As you said in your intro, a lot has happened since we were off air. The election, general election,
yes.
The Minority Report was suspended, because we had a very hectic general election season. The dust is now settled.
Yes, it has.
Yeah, and in light of that, I think it is fitting to, one, extend our sincere gratitude to those persons who would have served, and particularly our MPs for Tobago East and West, Mrs. Ayanna Webster Roy and Mrs. Shamfa Kajul Lewis, as well as our former Prime Ministers, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley and Stuart Richard Young SC, and all the other persons who would have served in whatever capacities in government. We want to thank you for your service over the past 10 years being in government. And I also want to take the opportunity as well to congratulate our new MPs for Tobago East and West, Mr. Thomas, as well as Mr. Joel Sampson, and our incoming Prime Minister, who was sworn in recently, and her cabinet, Mrs. Kamala Persad-Bissessar, as well as our leader of the opposition, Mrs. Penelope Beckles-Robinson. We really wish the government and the opposition all the best as they govern for all of Trinidad and Tobago, and not only for a particular color or a particular segment of the society.
Minority Councillor, thank you very much. And I just want to touch on, congratulations are definitely in order. We would have seen these two young ladies, Tobago East and West MPs, really carry the torch for the past 10 years in government. And more notable, what I want to zero in on is not just carry the torch as parliamentarians, but they carry the torch as cabinet members.
Correct.
And a number of decisions were made for Tobago simply as a result of their direct advocacy. So it's not, we don't just want to say thank you for being the MPs or the representatives, but we also want to zero in on the fact that these two hardworking young ladies sat day in, day out as members of a functional cabinet. and made very, very critical decisions that have definitely impacted not only Tobago, but Trinidad and Tobago. And it speaks volumes to the quality of the persons. It was not simply a case that they went into the parliament or into the cabinet to simply represent the interests of only Tobagonians, but they were able to impact the lives of hundreds of thousands of Trinidadians in the decisions that they were able to make. We saw former Honorable Webster Roy serving in the capacity of child and gender. And we saw former Honorable Shamfa Kojo serving in the capacity of community development, of youth development, sports, and even tourism.
Yes, at one point in time.
And these portfolios are not portfolios that are specific only to Tobago, but they're portfolios that are specific to the overall development of our nation. So it is safe for us to say this evening that our two MPs who would have served in the cabinet for the past 10 years have been able to make significant impact on the lives of people through their respective ministries they served in over a 10-year period. And I think, Minority Councillor, that is not an easy task.
Yes, and particularly because they were from Tobago, one of the MPs, had family with children, so having to uproot herself and being back and forth, both MPs being back and forth, several times through the week.
Sometimes daily.
Understand how difficult that task could have been, and for the sacrifice, because it is a sacrifice, for the sacrifice and for their contribution. And as you rightly said, not only as MPs, but for their contribution to the development of Tobago and Trinidad, because we have seen that through their advocacy, meaningful, substantial development came to Tobago. Yeah. And not only Tobago, but to the country by extension. So
a number of times we would have even seen the MPs and former MPs and former ministers represent Trinidad and Tobago in their capacities internationally. And again, it speaks volumes to the caliber of the young women. It speaks volumes to the capacity of the young women to be able to be selected amongst their peers to go and stand on international platforms. And this, I want to stress international, because this is not just regional. This wasn't just amongst the Caribbean islands. Many times they were made to speak and to present on global platforms with some of the largest countries around the world. And indeed, they represented well for Trinidad and Tobago. They represented well for Tobago. And I think they would have given to us human service. And we cannot allow today's program, the return, and the first time we step in, we could not allow this time to pass without recognizing the significant contributions made by these two young ladies, by their efforts, their sacrifices. And I mean, we can go on and on. There are so many things that we can identify right here in Tobago that would have been impacted by their advocacy, by their ability to be a part of the decision-making process. And I want to really stress that for us tonight, because as we go later into the program, we may touch on some other things, and we want to go into a bit of examination as well as to where we are now, where are we poised as Tobago in the whole scheme of governance in this new dispensation and this new era. So we really want to take that opportunity to say thank you, Ayana Webster Roy and Shamfa Kojo Lewis, for your human service that you would have contributed and impacted the lives of so many persons in Tobago, in Trinidad and Tobago, the region and internationally. And Minority Council, I saw you touched as well on former PMs, Dr. Rowley,
Yes,
and Stuart Young, SC. Dr. Rowley himself, I mean, if you were to just talk, is a legendary quote-unquote figure, I think, right now in Caribbean politics, being one of the longest-serving
members of parliament.
Members of parliament.
Over 45 years
Over
of service.
45 years of service.
That is a hallmark. And even under Dr. Rowley's leadership as Prime Minister, we would have seen unprecedented developments in Tobago. And we also want to thank him for his contribution and his will, because recently we would have seen the opening of the A&R Robinson International Airport, and we would have heard for a number of years, decades even, you know, the upgrading of the A&R International Airports, and we would have seen that come to pass under his leadership. So for all the many development initiatives that has been brought to Tobago under the leadership of the People's National Movement government, led by Dr. Rowley, and then in the latter part, former Prime Minister Stuart Young, SC, we also want to extend our deepest gratitude to you.
Yeah, definitely. And even though one can say that Mr. Young, MP Young's term may not have been long as Prime Minister, but we would have seen, even in the build-up to that, significant contributions made by him over the years, even as Minister of Energy and so on, and different capacities, Minister of National Security, and that kind of thing, and really impacting the development, and by extension, the entire cabinet that we would have seen in this last dispensation. Really put in a lot of work, and we want to say thank you. Thank you very much for your service. I don't think any time is ended in politics, but there are many different ways that I'm certain we are definitely going to see contributions coming from various individuals as we move
and Marlon,
forward.
In the spirit of saying thank you, I think we should also thank, because we have just concluded the general election, although we were not successful in returning to government, a number of persons in the electorate would have voted for the People's National Movement, and we thank you for your continued support.
Definitely.
We thank you for continuing to stay the course with us. We know that as a party now we are going through a period of transitioning, because we would have recently seen, I think as recent as last night, a press release being issued under the hand of the new chairman of the movement, Dr. Nayan Gaspidoli, issuing or indicating that the party is due for internal elections before the end of June. So, and we also would have seen where, you know, under the Tobago Council of the PNM, we would have started a series of meetings, you know, getting the views of the members as to, you know, how they felt and what would have transpired, so that we too as a council, as a Tobago council, can chart the way forward in preparation for the upcoming THA election. So again, we want to thank all of you who would have supported the People's National Movement. We thank you for your contribution, and we do look forward to your support as we go forward.
Well done. Thank you very much, Minority Councillor. So folks, we're going to go to a short break. When we get back, we're going to go into a bit of discussion. We had a sitting in the height of the election, and I think that much of what took place in that sitting we were not able to see effectively ventilated in the public domain. So we're going to touch a bit on that information. We're going to discuss some things that came out of that particular sitting. And this evening, again, folks, we're going to just be having a number of discussions, and it is going to redound to the benefit of each and every one of us as we continue to seek to find clarity in what is taking place with respect to the governance of Tobago. So folks, we'll be right back. Stay logged on, stay locked on, continue to share the live, and we continue our discussion shortly.
You can now get whatever you need whenever you need it anywhere in Tobago with Tobago. Your meals, medication, groceries, and shopping all delivered directly to you. No more hassle, no more stress. Get the Tobago app today on Google Play or Apple App Store.
That's TAPPOGO and let us deliver to you.
Check our website at www.tapogo.app or call the experts at 494-TOGO and 484-4746. Tapago. Relax. We will get it to you. Tapago's at your service.
When the game is on, you don't want to miss the best moments. With AMPLIA TV, you can enjoy our ultimate sports package and watch your favorite games on the go. Stay connected and informed with sports news, scores, and stats with AMPLIA's fastest internet speeds. Up to 1 gigabyte fiber internet, you can stream riveting football action, cricket, NBA games, and much more. With AMPLIA, it's game on. Visit amplia.co.tt or call 800-4663. AMPLIA. Do more, live more.
The best place to stay in Tobago is at Thorn's Place with rates starting as low as 200 TT. Call or WhatsApp 745-7306 or 682-8676. We are located uptown Scarborough, 5 minutes away from the port. Remember, at Thorn's Place, our aim is to make your stay safe and affordable.
Do you think you know Premier League or Champions League football? What about international cricket or the IPL and CPL? How about NBA basketball? Well, now you can put your skills to work to earn some extra cash by betting on the games with TT Bet Arena. Simply go to our website, choose a sport you want to bet on, find the games and place your bets. And with your computer or mobile device, you can bet from anywhere. Just go to ttbetarena.com, sign up for a free account, make a deposit, and start betting. It's that simple. You can even qualify for our $2,000 sign-up bonus. We also have horse racing, plus live casino games where you can bet using TT dollars. And check our new Tobago location at 7B Milford Road, Crown Point. For more info, call or WhatsApp 494-0634. TT Bet Arena, the #1 sports betting company in Trinidad and Tobago.
Hi folks, we are back. You are watching the Minority Report. I'm Marlon David, your host, and in studio with me is the Minority Councillor, Mrs. Petal Daniel Benoit. As we were discussing when we came out to go to the break, Minority Councillor, we had the 40th sitting of the Tobago House of Assembly. It fell the week before the election. Yes. And so I think in the noise of everything, things got lost and persons may not have been informed. But a significant issue and motion was brought in that particular sitting. Let me give you the opportunity to read it for our members and just for us to have a bit of discussion on it.
Okay, awesome. So at that sitting was the private members' motion, and as a result, the minority leader would have brought a motion to the House. And this is not the first time that we would have complained about questions remaining unanswered on the order paper, be it oral or written. And I think the last time that we came to the media and shared our concerns about unanswered questions, particularly when we came previously, that was in relation to oral questions. We saw an improvement in the responses to the questions, but we have been experiencing some delinquency in terms of responding to written questions. And as a result of that, the minority leader would have piloted a motion, and I want to take the opportunity to read the motion for you. The motion says, whereas the Executive Council has demonstrated a disregard for transparency, accountability, and good governance in its reporting to the Tobago House of Assembly, and whereas the failure of secretaries to provide timely responses to written questions on general administrative issues of divisions, including but not limited to finance, procurement, ethics, and other issues of significant public interest, deprives the House and the public of critical information, including matters related. Be it resolved that this House highlights that members of the Executive Council have failed to provide responses to written questions and urges that all outstanding responses to questions for written answers be submitted without further delay. And be it further resolved that this House supports the Standing Orders Committee to consider and recommend an appropriate amendment to the Standing Orders to establish a definitive time frame for the submission of written answers and to prescribe consequences for non-compliance. So, as I indicated, this motion was to deal with what we consider a demonstrated disregard for responding to. And this motion was particular about written questions because every month, we as the minority persons will come to us, person will share information, we recognize things are in the public domain. We will file questions to secretaries that require answers that are in the best interests of the people of Tobago, because we see things happening and we think it's our responsibility to seek the answers from the persons who are responsible. And in this case, the persons responsible are the secretaries. So there's a specific item on the order paper which speaks to questions to secretaries. It can be written, it can be oral. And we have a number of, I think it is over 40 written questions that are unanswered for over 2 years.
2 years?
2 years. And just as had occurred when we brought a complaint that the oral questions were not being answered, what we see transpiring in the House when the motion was piloted is that on that said day, we actually saw one of the secretaries, which is the Secretary of Agriculture, we saw her responding to some of the written questions on that particular day. So after more than 2 years, questions remain on the order paper. Because a motion was filed, we saw where the secretary attempted to respond to some of the questions that was posed to her.
What is the purpose for the minority asking these questions? And I'm asking this so that the public has an appreciation for the work that goes into the sitting, that is not just simply coming together and just arguing across the floor. But what influences the different questions that are put forward?
So, information in the public domain, you may hear some rumblings or talking, or persons may come to you sharing information that is happening within the divisions. So in order to get the right information and in order to keep the administration accountable, the minority files questions at each sitting. And there's a recommended, based on the standing order. The standing order provides a period which the question must be submitted. So it provides ample time for the questions to be disseminated to the secretaries and for the secretaries to respond to the question, be it verbal or be it written. So we are required to submit questions 21 days in advance of the sitting.
And with such a time frame in advance,
yes,
we have
and
questions
at every
outstanding over 2 years.
At every sitting, the minority files a question. Between the minority leader and myself, we have up to 3 questions each. So we have a maximum of 3 questions per sitting, oral and written. And in most sittings, we would file a minimum of 1 or a maximum of 3. So at every single sitting, a question comes from the minority.
So, having filed this motion, what was the response coming from the administration? How because the fact exists that these questions are unanswered. One would think that, okay, if posed with a motion like this, then the response should naturally be one of willingness to now gather the information and provide. Was that the case on the day of the sitting?
No, the case on the day of the sitting was one where they attempted to, I guess, try the minority leader for the timing of the motion and to indicate that the motion should not be a motion, but the motion should really be a discussion among the members of the Standing Order Committee. So that was the rightful place that he should have taken his or whatever grievances and concerns that the minority would have had for delay in responding. But the thing about it is, I do not, or the minority does not think that the Standing Orders Committee should be or should have a broomstick to tell the secretaries that they ought to respond to questions posed. To me, what they promise, this administration promised greater accountability. They promised greater transparency. So the mere fact, so in the interest of greater transparency, in the interest of greater accountability, if a question is posed, why not respond to the question? Why you need to duck and hide for several months? Why a motion has to be filed? Why we have to go to the media, go in the public domain to inform the public? We have filed certain questions, and for whatever the reasons are, the administration is unwilling to respond. And then it brings the question, why not respond? Is there more in the mortar, or is there more that meets the eye that this administration does not want divulged?
What is actually being hidden?
Yeah.
From the general public. So folks, we're going to take another short break. We have been discussing the 40th sitting and the private members motion brought by the minority leader. And we're going to go a bit into it as we continue to dig a little deeper to create some clarity for you, the public. So stay locked on. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Tobago Glass Supplies, where innovation meets excellence and service reigns supreme.
Well, I want a proper window for me house, yeah? I want no shake thing in my place.
Our commitment is simple: to provide high-quality, innovative aluminum, vinyl, and glass solutions for both commercial and residential spaces.
We get one wall on the side and we get one hole. You can put a window there, invent something, a window for put there.
At TGSL, we don't just meet needs, we exceed expectations. Our range includes the finest aluminum cladding options, setting new standards in durability and style.
Well, me meet ya. Me don't know who I'm talking to, but I have the children, cousin Tofina tell me, for call all you go get proper thing for put there. Me don't know.
Driven by our passion to elevate, we aim to be the leading supplier in the Caribbean market while retaining our identity as a family-owned business.
Driven? No, I ain't driving. I get a bus ticket. One of me pick me them go drop me down there. Must bring me down there. Russo Trace Printer down by the place down there.
Because at Tobago Glass Supplies Limited, it's not just about products, it's about relationships. It's about you.
It's all about me? Who's your family? You know Edna and Dorka and them, you know them, but you resemble them Edward boy and them Edward people, them you.
Tobago Glass Supplies, Russo Trace Spring Garden, telephone number 639-6266. Innovation, quality, service. That's Tobago Glass Supplies Limited.
TNTech is pleased to advise that its Roxborough Service Center has reopened. Starting Monday, 10th March, customers can once more visit the Roxborough Administrative Building to pay TNTech bills, request new connections, and more. TNTech, powering the nation into the next generation.
in a dispute with a registered investment service provider of the TTSEC? Or maybe you're the victim of an investment scam. You can lodge a complaint or submit an anonymous tip to the Trinidad and Tobago Securities and Exchange Commission. Download our Investor Protection app or go to ttsec.org.tt to access our complaint form or submit an anonymous tip. Write a clear summary of your complaint. Submit copies of supporting documents along with the originals for verification. Provide a copy of the feedback received from the entity regarding your complaint. All investor complaints or scam reports submitted by the public are acknowledged and reviewed by the TTSEC. Investigations are pursued based on the outcome of the review. Trinidad and Tobago Securities and Exchange Commission, protecting the interests of investors and the public. You invest, we protect. Everyone benefits.
So, folks, we are back here on the Minority Report, and we continue to provide you with information. We continue to provide you with facts. And joining us now in studio as we continue with the program this evening is none other than the Minority Leader, Assemblyman Kelvin Morris. We've been talking a bit about the last sitting, and I know he does, in fact, have something to share before we close on that particular topic and get into some other meatier areas that we will unfold as the program continues. Welcome to the return, Minority Leader.
Good evening, each and everyone. Marilyn, Councillor Benoit, how are you all doing? Tobago, our loyal listeners, viewers, contributors, you know, we appreciate all of you and we look forward to an exciting evening, an exciting discussion.
So, Minority Leader, we just actually have been wrapping up with the final sitting so far, the 40th sitting. Any comments you want to share quickly before we move on?
Well, yet again, this is clear evidence of an administration that is very hypocritical, because we know they campaigned about transparency. I remember the Deputy Chief Secretary saying that they would be so transparent you would be able to go online and Google any kind of contracts and you would see who is the contractor, and as a matter of fact, they said they would have invited the public to view one of their executive council, meetings and sittings, so that you can see how they are deliberating and managing your business. And after 3.5 years, we have to be begging, pleading, asking, trying all the different provisions of the standing orders to try to get them to answer questions that are important to you, Tobagonians. And usually the questions we ask are questions we already have some idea of the answer. But on because many of you share the information with us, and what we attempt to do in the public space is to share the information with the rest of the public, just like the matter I will be dealing with in a couple minutes or so. But we continue to ask the questions. Even as we speak, even after bringing a motion, you're still seeing them trying to duck, weave, and hide, and using all kind of clandestine, underhand ways to avoid answering questions. We have asked a question about a medical practitioner who we understand there was some issue of malpractice, and unfortunately that medical practitioner lost their life, and we sympathize with the family. But on behalf of you, the people, we have information about a settlement, etc. And in asking that question, the secretary was pretending like she didn't have a clue when that was public knowledge. And this is the games that they are playing with your affairs, Tobago. They continue to take us for fools, and we are not fools. We will continue to hold them accountable. We will ask the questions on your behalf, and sometimes they attempt to embarrass us.
Yes.
But we will take the embarrassment, because at the end of the day, what we are doing is on behalf of every Tobagonian who has a right to know how their resources, that scarce taxpayers' money, is being used in this Tobago space. So we'll continue to ask the questions. We'll continue to stay very vigilant and very focused on this matter of them responding to questions, and therefore it is based on the standing orders. We will try to get the standing orders amended, because as I made the point as well, the role of the minority, as with the rest of the executive and the assembly, is to ensure that we leave the assembly even stronger, more rigorous, more accountable and transparent than we met it. And it is unfortunate that they voted against that motion. A motion simply calling for us to respond to the questions, and two, ensure that the Standing Orders Committee does the work and provides the recommendation in terms of amendments to the standing orders to ensure there's provisions to have accountability when it comes to answering questions and strengthen
that aspect, because even as we spoke about that sitting, none of the questions that was under my name on the order paper were answered.
Correct.
And then we have the situation where if secretaries are not prepared to answer questions,
they don't come.
From the sitting.
Or if the questions are too difficult, what they do, and I want you to recognize this, Tobago, because we have asked some questions about the jazz. And I will tell you up front, while I commend my Tobago artists, you showed up and showed out. And there will be many forums under the People's National Movement, as there were in the past, for you to highlight your creative talents. But it should not cost the people of Tobago $9.5 million to only, in terms of revenue, make something around 1.5. So you're looking at over $8 million down the drain in losses. That ended up only being a campaign ploy, where hundreds of tickets were given out at the expense of you Tobagonians, because that $8 million is $8 million that is necessary for medical, for pharmaceuticals in the hospital, for the grants that you can't get, for paying people on time. Many people are complaining they have not been paid on time. I'm seeing bus drivers who the Maximen who take our children to school cannot be paid, asking for their money. People who provided services for Carnival, they are still waiting on their money. But yet the Festivals Commission spent over $9 million after we were told by this very administration. We were told by this administration that they were scrapping the jazz, getting out of the jazz because it was not profitable, and we must hold them to account.
Yes. So the vision under this new rebranded jazz festival
was to be profitable. That is the goal. So don't let them fool you.
And under the past, and I think we need to be clear and bring it into context, because under the past administration, the vision was not necessarily to make profit, but it was a tourism attraction. It was also a way to help our local artists and to bring some level of economic activity in communities. So it wasn't about profit making. But with this new administration disbanding the jazz festival, speaking about the new policy, which is to create profit, we see in the first instance that it has suffered a huge loss. And even as we ask the question again, if you want to improve accountability and transparency, tell the people the truth. Respond to the question. Indicate what some of your inefficiencies. Indicate to us how you're gonna address some of those efficiencies in going forward, so that you can see, some level of profitability in the future.
And what is sad, they were the ones. I remember the chief secretary on record talking about the VIP And how they just have so many people
Yes.
up in VIP
Yes.
talking about complimentary.
Yes.
And how we giving away the tickets and it not profitable and they are getting out and only to turn wrong and do worse because their THA VIP bill was very high from my information. They had a good time, a good merry time during the Easter, eating and drinking ham, lamb and jam while we have many Tobagonians catching their royal tanti and nenen.
Yeah. Just be honest.
Just be honest, come clean. And if you're doing the right thing, then you will have no problem answering the questions. If you are doing the right thing, then you will have no difficulty coming to Tobagonians and responding, knowing that what you are doing is in their best interest.
So, Minority Leader, in the vein of doing the right thing and the best interest, we have a very, very trending topic right now. It has been circulating all throughout the media. You of yourself would have started addressing it yesterday by doing a short live to bring to the general public some of the facts behind this matter. We now see a decision from the court of law where a group of individuals who suffered the great injustice of having their contracts terminated by this administration, this chief secretary, as soon as he entered into office. But we see a new decision coming out by the court. To remind folks of what we would have heard from the chief secretary, I'd like the director just to run that short clip, and then we're going to go a bit into that discussion.
Sure.
Let me tell you something, You don't have to fear the PNM losing election, Because one of the things I will do as Chief Secretary is ensure that you don't lose your job. You don't lose your job because a PNM person will give you a contract. That's not how it's going to work with me at all.
There's a situation where a number of persons were sent home from the Division of Infrastructure. Any word on that? About 13 persons will be affected.
Right. So that particular unit was called Monitoring and Evaluation Unit, and that unit basically comprised what is known in the industry as political hires.
Many months later.
Well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions. What's up? What's up?
So folks, we heard the chief secretary. He said quite a lot before the elections, and then as we've grown accustomed to him, come and turn and did something completely opposite. Minority Leader, you lead us off in this.
Well, it's not just that he said quite a lot, but he made a commitment to the people there and on the platform. There are numerous examples of the chief secretary reiterating this commitment to contract workers, that upon coming into office, no contract worker will be terminated, and therefore persons took him to his word, and many went out and supported. That is a fact. And only for him to turn around and do exactly the opposite from as early as within 2 weeks. You would recall the monitoring and evaluation unit persons attached to that unit were fired. And then they went to the CPU unit, persons again fired, and eventually they got to CPEP, they were fired. And it was only when the court matter started to come in that it kind of brought up.
And the voices were raised.
And the voices started to raise, because at that time, the YES program was under threat, BD was under threat, and eventually, they got to TATCO as well. But you would recall, as Minority, we provided immediate support to these workers by way of organizing, and I want to really say thank you to Mr. Farai Masai Sai of Hove and Associates, who came on a pro bono arrangement and gave legal advice to these workers, basically starting the groundwork for them to be able to have that kind of counsel to proceed with litigation. And therefore, you know, that judgment that came out on the 30th of April is really a landmark judgment.
Correct.
It is vindication for these workers who were labeled political hires. You remember that?
Yes.
Yeah.
They were, the idea, in fact, they even started to slander people's credibility, people's qualifications, even people's work ethic. All kind of rumors were going around trying to make it appear and trying to justify their wicked, heartless, and vindictive actions. And therefore, I am really heartened by this judgment that has been handed down by the Industrial Court, Minority Council.
Yeah, no, and I want us to pay attention to some of the recommendations or some of the information that was shared by the judge, because if we review the article speaks to determinations being unfair, unlawful, and politically motivated.
Yeah.
Correct.
And for me, hearing a chief secretary, or at the time he was
Candidate.
chief secretary candidate, because we all know that he was vying for the chief secretary.
Correct. That is how he sold himself.
So listening to the chief secretary candidate indicating to all of Tobago, and I will remember this one while he was on the platform saying, don't let Tobagonians, don't let stick breaking on your ears.
Yeah.
We said, with me sitting as chief secretary, your jobs will not be in danger.
Correct.
You will not be fired. And 2 weeks later?
And of course, you will recall as well the night of victory. He said, we now take off
our political colors, yes.
And we now go forward. And only 2 weeks later, hear him in this clip.
Yes, about political hires.
People who are employed in a unit for over more than a decade.
Yes.
Correct.
Labeling them as political hires.
And Tobagonians, I also want us to take note of another thing that the judge says, or other things that the judge said. It said that the decision to fire the workers appeared to be rushed, harsh, and unsupported. It also pointed out several contradictions in the THA's defense, and that should not be any news for us, because we have seen demonstrated time and time again that this administration, the chief secretary and other members of the administration contradicts themselves, and they have been strangers to the truth. So this should not be alarming when the judge could rule that there were contradictions in the defense.
And you know, the thing about it, Tobago is such a small place where actions of this nature have such a rippling effect on families and family life. I have two stories very quickly I'd like to share, because one story is a man I met at a repast, and the man was saying to me, "Minority leader, you know I vote for them people." But he voted for them people. His daughter, though, was employed with CPEP. They came and terminated all those monthly paid workers, including his daughter. So after supporting them, he had to know, because he said now that his daughter has lost her job, he now has to turn around and support the daughter. So it came in his mind, he jokingly said, you know, I really vote against myself.
Yes, correct.
Because here it is, he voted in support of thinking they will do better.
Fix this.
And it will not, only to realize he really, his vote
Work against
and
him
his family.
And his family.
And such immediate family. And those Tobagonians and persons viewing, we understand that when a new administration comes into office, there would be a change in policy. There will be a new direction.
Correct.
But it should not disadvantage the worker. And the law provides guidelines and rules within which these changes can happen. So to dismiss somebody unceremoniously without even, you didn't give them the proper or the adequate notice. You dismiss them without any type of compensation. There was no cause. So you were saying that you are restructuring, but there's a process for restructuring.
Correct.
The law provides a process for restructuring. So you're not supposed to just arbitrarily wake up one morning and decide that you're restructuring, so you're going to send home everybody. There was, and even in the matter they spoke about, not even an attempt to redeploy.
Yeah, correct.
Where was the restructuring plan?
Yeah.
Where was the new organizational chart? Where was the mechanism or the avenue for redeployment? And even if you want to dismiss persons, what is the compensation in keeping with
fair compensation?
Yes.
Because
contract.
Fair compensation, because at the end of the day, you are dealing with human beings.
Yes.
Correct.
Have families that depend on them. Some of them just took loans to purchase vehicles, etc. And out of the blue, an election came, an administration change, and without little to no warning, the job that you enjoyed for over 10, 14 years,
you became
obsolete,
immediately obsolete and on the breadline. And this, I received this letter, and I think I shared it once before. I met this letter one morning. I walked into work, and it said to me, the person, I guess, didn't want to leave their name because I'd like to contact this person, but appears to be a CPEP employee. Said, and I'll just read maybe the first paragraph for you to get a sense as to the pain and the suffering that this, and sometimes, you know, I am tempted to use strong words about the Honorable Fali Chavez Augustine, who has a child and has a family himself. And I hope he's listening, or one of his proxies is online listening, so they can share with him the hurt, the pain, and the distress he has placed on families, especially single women. Dear Mr. Morris, I am writing to you today with a heavy heart to share my recent struggles and the impact they have had on myself and my 3 young daughters. Since July 1st, 2022, I have been going through an incredibly difficult time. I was unjustly fired from my job, and to make matters worse, it seems as if I was blacklisted from the THE. The sense of betrayal and hopelessness I felt in that moment is hard to put into words. I had dedicated 10 years of my life to CPEP, going above and beyond my duties to ensure projects were successful, working tirelessly to provide for my family, and suddenly, it was all taken away from me. I'm an educated professional with years of experience in field, and I can't even get my name on a short list for the positions we were told to reapply for. We are still waiting to be redeployed by the THA, since that was a promise made to us. I have tried to visit several of the assemblymen for assistance. So many calls go unanswered and not returned. I was denied a food card and never went back to face any more embarrassment. I'm already facing enough embarrassment from the bank and courts on a weekly basis. And it goes on to talk about the children, her having to separate from her children. We had been forced to separate for now. Daughters are staying with grandparents as I am begging a lodging on a friend's couch. This is at the hands, this pain, this suffering of this mother and her three children, is on the hands of this young man called Farley Chavez Augustine. And to make matters worse, after inflicting such a horrendous, wicked act, even when the court is telling you you are wrong, what you are doing is unlawful, it is unfair, it is unjust, you still have the audacity to take taxpayers' money and the arrogance to say you are going to put more money into the hands of lawyers rather than just simply compensate the people that you have wronged.
What kind of
In
person
fact,
you are
you
to
should
be?
be coming and apologize profoundly and profusely for that injustice to Tobagonians. These Tobagonians, some of them may not even be PNM.
Yeah.
Some of them have relatives that support you strongly.
And some of them husband and wife. Husband and wife.
When did we get to this point?
When did we get here?
Heartless.
It is heartless. It is uncaring. It is wicked.
And Minority Leader, you have a point there. Because now that the court has ruled in favor of the 13 workers, the Chief Secretary is still taking a very arrogant position.
Very arrogant.
There is no remorse. So
And it's
these
like
people have suffered 3.5
it's
years
like
already.
There's some real motivation to see these people suffer.
Yes.
Yeah. But what would motivate you to want to see your fellow Tobagonian? Because this is one of the things he also said. He also said we are all Tobagonians.
Yeah.
Why would you want to see your fellow Tobagonians suffer?
After 3.5 years, many of these people are
Still unemployed.
Still, correct.
And
Correct.
all the court is saying, this action was unjust, it was unfair in the first instance because the people were properly employed and you did not follow a proper process.
So the restructuring that you said that you have been doing 3.5 years, where is the restructuring?
And they're saying it is unlawful because when you look at the Industrial Relations Act and the way how you're supposed to
and the
compensate
Severance and Benefits
and the
Act,
Severance and Benefits Act, you did not compensate them in a way they should have been compensated.
And you did not go about the process as prescribed in the law.
Yeah.
So it is unlawful. And of course, based on your own utterances, because in the letter of dismissal, they talk about change of political administration. Yes, the court does not, what the court recognizes is simply governments and administrations. They don't care whether you are PDP administration or PNM. You treat people as they ought to be treated regardless. And therefore, you by your own utterance, in your letter, your termination letter, basically sold out yourself.
Because it had nothing to do with restructuring.
Because it had absolutely nothing to do with restructuring and simply all about political victimization. And while this is happening to Tobago, while this is happening, while this wicked chief secretary is sending home innocent, hard-working, diligent Tobagonians.
Who in the job years.
Who working, as this young lady said, sacrificing some of them, measly salary, $7,000.
Between 7 and 13,000.
Right?
Yeah.
You have that situation to Tobago.
And you don't want to compensate them.
You don't want to compensate them, but I want you all to see this document. This document speaks about a hiring process at the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection, a division where that is under the leadership of the Deputy Chief Secretary. And if this isn't the highest case of nepotism, I do not know what is. So in one breath, the Chief Secretary is talking about political hires. But in this case, we have a classic case of political nepotism. And I want to share this Freedom of Information request and the response received. And I want, if you can put it up, so that I can help to bring context to the people of Tobago to see that the man that is leading Tobago is all about himself. He's not about Tobagonians. He's about inflicting pain on the normal average Tobago man while he enriches him and his family.
Correct. Mr. Director, could we have that image up?
So this FOI, and I want it to stay up while I guide you through, is one filed regarding the recruitment process for the position of Senior Program Coordinator, Children and Family Services within the division, and requests for documents relating to procurement of the recent fleet of ambulances. Of course, that request for the ambulances was misplaced and really that was filed with the Tobago Regional Health Authority. But the matter at hand is about this position specific to Senior Program Coordinator. And therefore the inquirer, the person inquiring, would have asked specific questions in this FOI. They wanted to find out the date the position was created. They wanted to find out when or whether there was any advertisement for the position. They also wanted to find out the posting date of the advertisement and the locations of the posting, where it was posted. Social media,
the
newspapers, internal, external, etc. They asked two key questions here because this is where the crux of the matter really lies. And number 5, evaluation report from the recruitment process on both occasions. 6, evaluation report from the interview committee. So those are the two. Oh, sorry. Number 4, I jumped it. Number 4, the number of applicants interviewed.
Yeah.
So 5 and 6 dealt with the report of those interviewed. 7, the successful candidates selected for the position. And 8, the total remuneration package offered for this role. And I want to turn to the next piece of the next page. I want to scroll to the next page. And this is where we have some responses based on the questions. So question 1, they did respond and they indicated that the position was created on the 7th day of February 2024. Question 2, they said the advertisement for the position is here to enclose. We did not receive, based on the package received, no advertisement, but it said it was enclosed. 3, the position was advertised on the 5th day of April 2024 via email and via the division's Facebook page.
Via email to who?
Email to
and
who?
That is that is the
so
is a very
advertise it by
interesting
sending out emails.
Yes.
Who
Who
you're emailing? Who you're emailing?
Because this should be something
But
for the
they
general
said-
public.
Correct. It was also advertised. So you recognize the only public advertisement was really on,
The
on
division
their
Facebook
page. No advertisement by way of the press, the print media, nothing of that sort. It was advertised internally.
Yeah, the next part.
No, just now via WhatsApp to the heads of department and DHWSP community chat. So if you're not part of the community chat or the WhatsApp heads of department, perhaps you would not have known that this public position
And you didn't
was
get the email.
available. 4, so they would have moved on. They would have probably received applications, and they said 6 applicants were interviewed. They didn't give date nor time, but they said 6 applicants were interviewed. Interestingly, they refused under the Freedom of Information Act to provide to you, the people of Tobago, the information that would treat with the placement of those persons who were interviewed. And as a former chief secretary used to like to say, having now seen who emerged as the
successful.
Well, I wouldn't say successful.
That's
who
what they say.
Into the position, you would have a clear idea why they do not want us to see the merit list of these interviews. Tobago, we big and we have sense. But question 7, and again we began, we have sense. This name should be very familiar to all of Tobago. I want us to put back put it up back there.
Put it up, Mr. Director.
We are in full disclosure.
We want to make sure what we're reading is what people see.
Because this is a freedom of, and it is your business to know, fellow Tobagonians. Mrs. Takiana Ned Augustine. And for all of you who do not know who is Mrs. Takiana Ned Augustine, that is the wife of the chief secretary. So you have a position in the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection.
Created in February.
6 persons interviewed. And you give us all the information except to tell us who won the interview, who placed second, who placed third, who placed fourth, who placed fifth, who placed sixth, or whether Takiana Ned Augustine was interviewed any at all. And I'm asking the question therefore pointedly, given the public interest in this matter, the deputy chief secretary, given that this involves the wife of the chief secretary and the perception for nepotism and cronyism in this employment, it is in the public interest that they release, produce the report for all of Tobago to see whether this wife of the chief secretary was properly employed, and because the salary is engaged, and look at the salary. So while people who earning $7,000 is you're terminating their jobs, the wife of the chief secretary, this salary, $19,000 basic salary, transport allowance of $2,500. I don't even remember during my time transport allowance being so high, genuinely. And then professional allowance of $2,500. What I don't even recall in my time seeing people. You were a chartered accountant. Did you ever get a professional allowance?
No. I never had a professional allowance.
So you have the wife of the chief secretary going home with $24,000 a month, while you have poor Tobagonians home suffering, who you terminated. And when the court say to compensate them, you are refusing. And in this situation, your deputy chief secretary is ashamed to tell Tobagonians what was the score sheet of everyone who was interviewed, and to answer the most important question, whether this wife of the chief secretary was even part
of the process.
Of this process. That is,
and I think minoritarily they probably need to read over that part that why they're not willing to respond to.
Yeah, what was the reason?
So they are saying question 5 to 6. We are unable to accede to your request for access to these documents information based on section 31 of the Freedom of Information Act, which states that a document that is an exempt document, if its disclosure under this act would involve unreasonable disclosure of personal information of individual. What unreasonable information is there about sharing the placement, the ratings of persons who participated in an interview, especially given that one of the persons who, the person who eventually was placed in the position is the wife.
Close relative.
The wife of the chief secretary.
And that is why we continue to say, even, and it goes back to the questions. We ask the questions, you refuse to answer. You answer inappropriately when you eventually answer, and it raises more questions than answers.
And so therefore, I'm calling on the media to get to the deputy chief secretary and ask her why they are refusing, given now that this is in the public domain, and given that one of the individuals involved in this process is a high-profile, politically exposed person. It is in the public interest and in their own interest to take away any perception of nepotism by providing the information so all of us can be comfortable in our own minds
that due process
was followed.
Correct.
And the young lady she was properly interviewed and successful in that process. Because outside of that, it only gives rise to suspicion and speculation.
Correct.
And the deputy chief secretary, therefore, it is in the public interest that she responds to this matter and respond immediately. Minority Councillor.
No, it's quite concerning, and like I indicated before, I don't see the reason why you ought not, or you are unable to provide the information in terms of ranking. Because I don't see that as being any personal information. And I know because this information is disclosed, you may hear some commenters coming and saying stuff like things would have happened in the past and whatever. But the thing about it is, and I would continue to say that, this administration came in and they said that they're going to fix it.
Yeah.
So any perceived nepotism
before
anything that was not done well should be a thing of the past. And your justification for wrongdoing should not be it was done in the past, so you come in and do it worse. And you're doing it and you're not being accountable. You're not being transparent. There's no problem with the wife of the chief secretary being employed because Tobago is a small society.
Exactly.
But the thing about it is, what is the process?
Correct.
And I think because the person who emerged is the wife of the chief secretary, then there should be the greatest.
Correct. Yeah.
Yep.
Because you don't want anybody to say that this is nepotism.
Yeah.
Create the position, go through the process.
Right.
Ensure that the process is transparent. Ensure that the advertisement is available so that anybody interested could participate. So make sure the process is as transparent as possible so it can stand.
And again, when the questions are asked, just answer the question truthfully. The fact that you don't want to answer this question on the merit list.
Yeah.
Who came first, who came second, who came third, who came fourth, and whether in fact you didn't even provide the names of the persons who were interviewed. So it gives rise to a number of questions. The first question is whether the individual so named that is identified as a successful candidate was interviewed in the first place.
And there's
Was there
there's
even
other
six
questions.
persons?
Yes.
Was
But the also question, it was sent via email.
Yeah.
Was this via who was the
received the email
recipients of the email? Was it an internal email? Did you just decide and pick out the executive of a particular entity to send it to?
So I am giving the Deputy Chief Secretary 3 days. 3 days to respond. Failing which, we will act on this matter and take it all the way to the High Court if they continue, because what would follow is a pre-action protocol letter.
To
And
provide
if
the
they
information.
continue to refuse, because this is not information exempt under the law, based on our appreciation for the law, this isn't an executive council note or some kind of non-disclosure.
No sensitive document or anything.
This is basic information that anybody, including the persons who are part of the interview, should be able to access.
Yeah. Because
Correct.
generally,
Because
if you are part of an
yeah.
interview and you feel as if you
correct.
are not treated fairly, you have a right to ask
To
the
challenge the
report,
process.
For
the report of
Correct.
the committee, the screening, or the interview panel.
Correct. So therefore, we are giving the secretary 3 days to clear up this matter, and I have absolutely no horse in the race. If the process was properly done, by all means, as Petal said, she is a Tobagonian. She is very much qualified to work in Tobago, like everybody else.
Just like everybody else.
And one thing I can assure her, unlike this wicked administration, when the PNM returns, she will not be adversely treated. We treat every Tobagonian fairly. Because once you come with a spirit of professionalism,
correct,
and your work ethic is in the right place and the right space, you have a place in any PNM administration.
But you should have a place in any administration.
Well, clearly this administration,
they have a different perception.
Yes, if you're professional, because it's really about getting the work done.
Properly qualified, properly went through a process of interviews, and they still ended up on the breadline.
And
So
we have the reverse happening.
We will not be disqualifying people based on who is your husband or your political affiliation. Political affiliation. That will not be a consideration going forward. That is something I can assure you. So if it was done in the past, we are not responsible for the past. What only thing we can control is the future, and that we give the commitment to every Tobagonian, every contract worker in the THA, that you will be treated fairly under the next PNM administration. And you don't have to be sweating when time for contract renewal.
Listen,
or be afraid
it's prayers.
to comment on social media.
Or be afraid to be associated.
Afraid to associate.
Under the Constitution, we have a freedom to support, associate, to speak.
Persons
and because
have been
there's a
saying-
perceived... Because you perceive that I affiliate with a particular color, I am blacklisted, sideline. I can't get a job when it's time for my contract to come for renewal.
The most anxious time is contract renewal. Innit?
Public servants are under duress. They are walking on eggshells. And many of them call me, many of them share with me their experience at this time. It is a really tough time for contract workers, especially working in the Tobago House of Assembly. And you know what is sad? The PNM attempted to provide that level of security for contract workers, understanding that you have to go to the banks to, you want to build homes, you want to do long-term investment. And that is why we have created the provision where once you're in the THA for a period of time, you have basically almost an automatic 3-year contract renewal.
Legitimate expectation.
Right? And that then provided the banks with a little more
level of trust
that you can in fact service your loans and etc. But now people are saying to me the banks are very cautious in treating with any long-term arrangement
outside of your contract period. Because minority leader, the trust has been eroded. I remember the days when THA workers used to have 1-year contracts, and the cry was they couldn't enter into any long-term financial arrangements, be it loan or mortgages. We moved from that place to a place where, as you said, THA contract workers were getting loans, they were getting mortgages. Now it seems like we have reverted 20 years.
Yeah.
Because of how this administration and because of the policy, directive and actions of this administration to unjustly and unfairly treat contract workers, the trust among our financial institutions has been eroded.
Folks, we definitely want to thank you for being with us this evening. Quite a lot has been said. We already getting the prompts. As usual, we never out of words, but we're out of time. Minority Leader, you want to close quickly with anything?
No, well, it's just to continue, especially I want to speak to my PNM brothers and sisters, just to encourage them to hold the faith. All is not lost. Right now, we are going through a process of engagement. I want you all to come out and speak your minds, have your voices heard. Let us discuss as a family. And of course, to continue to encourage those who seem at this point in time disenchanted in some way. This forum provides you with an opportunity to really share your concerns, ask your questions, etc., and let us go forward as a party, because we have an island to rescue, and we are already seeing, even within 10 days, we have a country as well to rescue. So we need to be focused. Let us put away pettiness, petty differences, and let us be very clear that we in this last election, if you do the analysis, in Tobago West, we were able to capture, if it was a THA and all things being equal, we would have captured 5 of the 8 seats in Tobago West, although we lost that seat. And in other places, we would have competed it would have been very tight margins. And therefore, it tells me, if after basically almost whitewashing 2021, 14-1 overwhelming defeat, to be in a position where you basically are leading based on the poll in 5 districts, very close in 4, and perhaps with some work to do in another 2, bringing it to 11, there's a lot of positive, a lot to take away from that, a lot for you, the members, to be hopeful and optimistic about, and let us go forward together to ensure that we rescue Tobago from the hands of this incompetent, wicked, devious, corrupt TPP administration.
Thank you very much, folks. Thank you for being with us. We look forward to joining you next Tuesday as we continue to do that which we are called upon to do. I'm Marlon David saying good night. Remember to keep praying, and God bless.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the commentators, guests, and the host. They do not explicitly or necessarily reflect nor represent the policy or views held by Tobago Updates or this network. Tobago Updates or this network cannot be held accountable for all or any views expressed during this program.